Today's reading is from the book Rays of the One Light, which is parallel commentaries from the Bible and the Bhagavad Gita, written by Swami Kriyanandaji. And these commentaries, again, Babaji asked Yukteswarji to compare these two scriptures. And this week's topic is titled, The Importance of Soul-Receptivity. Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Chapter 1 of the Gospel of St. John states, But as many as received him, to them gave he power to become the sons of God, even to them that believed on his name. This was a passage Paramahansa Yogananda often quoted to his disciples. Be in tune, he would tell them. Delusion can't touch you if you will keep in tune. A few of you will fall, he said once, but it needn't be if you would stay in tune. Of a disciple who became highly advanced, even though she didn't meditate much, he said she got there by attunement. To one who found meditation difficult, he said, I will meditate for you as long as you stay in tune. Truth is a state of consciousness, not a well-worded definition. It is in that consciousness above all that our lives are transformed. Therefore, the Bhagavad Gita says in the 10th chapter, To those who are ever attached to me and who worship me with love, I impart discernment by means of which they attain me. Out of my love for them, I, the divine within them, set alight in them the radiant lamp of wisdom, thereby dispelling the darkness of their ignorance. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om, Om, Om.
This reading is from Whispers from Eternity. This is entitled, I Will Be Thine Always. I may go far, farther than the farthest star, but I will be thine always. Devotees may come, devotees may go, but I will be thine always. I may bound over billows of many lives, under sad, dark skies of loneliness, but I will be thine always. The whole world may ignore thee, engrossed as it is in thy gifts of money, power, and pleasure, mere playthings, but I will be thine always. Take everything from me if thou willst, but Lord, I will be thine always. Death, disease, and every imaginable trial may riddle and rend me, yet while the embers of memory still flicker, look into my dying eyes. They will mutely say, I will be thine always. My voice may grow feeble, fail, and forsake me, and yet with bursting heart and with the silent voice of my soul, I will ever whisper to thee, my Lord, I am thine always. We have an important topic today, the importance of soul receptivity. And as I think you know, Swamiji wrote these commentaries to go for each Sunday of the year. It actually originated out of a conversation he had with Master when Swamiji was serving in the Hollywood Church, the same church actually where he met Master, Master's Hollywood Church. It was also called Hollywood Temple. And but it was a church. That's interesting in itself. And Master had it, got it during the late 1930s, if I'm not mistaken. And it was early 1940s, and it was during the war. And so when he was saying he wanted to put a church on this property, people said, as they did in those days, there's a war on. You know, there's no building, there's no lumber, there's no energy for anything. And but what Master did was he bought a church that was somewhere else, and then he moved it onto that land. I mean, I don't mean he went like this and moved, people saw it going. It wasn't like that. But, I don't know how you cut apart a church and drive it over and then put it back together. Anyway, amazing. But that's how he avoided new construction, because there was no new construction allowed. And so he accomplished it this way. Pretty amazing. And so Swamiji had this thought that wouldn't it be nice if we had certain topics or readings like we have now back then, so that all of the centers and all of the churches could be on the same topic for that week. And it's not so much a way of sort of making something rigid or sort of rules that way. Swamiji, though he did a lot of organizing back then and after, he was never that interested in rules. In fact, he followed very much Master's statement, too many rules kill the spirit. And so he said it would be nice because then everybody their minds could be on that topic or on those thoughts for that week. And it would be a way to unify all of us, at least in consciousness. And I wonder if we taste a little bit of that. It's not that we call up Ananda Pune and say, so, what was your talk on the importance of soul receptivity like? And so on. It's not always that we're comparing outwardly. But you know how when we watch a live broadcast, somehow it feels different than if we watch a recording. And there's no way to know that it's live just through the senses versus it's a recording. Unless you unmute your microphone and go blah, 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 blah. And then they say, can you please shut up? And you say, oh, sorry. So that's this happened to us recently in a Zoom call. It was really quite something. Anyway, but other than that, we can't tell, thank you. And yet, somehow we feel it. You somehow know this is happening right now. And there's more energy to it. I don't know. Maybe it's just me, or maybe it's not real. But it feels real. It feels that somehow we know it's happening, and it's not just psychological. And I've wondered, is it because all of our minds are sort of united in that moment? Because the people speaking, for example, if we're watching Jyotishji and Deviji like we did a few weeks ago, they're speaking right then, and their minds and their thoughts and their vibration is going out at that moment, not just the recording, and meaning not just the image and the sound. And so Swamiji pointed out, as Master had pointed out, that thought is not bound by space, and in probably even time. That thought can, instantly connect two people over any distance right away. And there's even some basis for that in physics with, I don't understand much about it, but I think it has to do with, is it quarks or something like that? No, these, anyway, some subatomic particles that, maybe it is quarks. Anyway, they have spin up and spin down there, and they're paired. Thank you for nodding, Ramesh. It gives me great courage. So these particles exist in pairs, and when one is called spin up, what does spin up mean? What does positive, negative mean? It's just one way of saying this state A or state B. So they say spin up versus spin down. How fast is it spinning? Who even knows? Is it even spinning? But they said that if these things can be, thousands of miles apart, and if the state of this one changes from spin up to spin down, the other one will instantaneously change. Now, how is that possible? Does it say, hey, are you ready? There's no way to do it. The sound wave would take time, even if it calls, on the phone, you can imagine beep, 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 trying to connect to Saturn or wherever the other one is. It takes time. You know that. You talk on the phone to someone and you think that it's happening in real time. And yet if you walk near that person, you hear that what they said happened before. You hear it before. And you realize the phone has different ways of tricking us into thinking that we're talking instantaneously. And so, anyway, that's one sort of paradox of physics, is how do these two things talk to each other? Or are they connected in some way? Anyway, this feeling, so Swamiji said to Master, what if we did this? We unified our readings each week. And he said, it's a great idea. Master really liked that idea. And so Swamiji was able to implement it in some form then, or actually he wasn't, but he implemented it now. And so it's nice. But these readings are not just random subjects. Devotion, attunement, how the universe was created. It's a progression. And so it does, the beginning of the year, January, begins with readings on the nature of the universe, how the universe was created, and so on. The reading before this one, which we didn't cover together, was the Avatara, or divine incarnation. And so that's reading number 5. And so it tells you already that as quickly as possible, after laying the groundwork that yes, there is a universe and a cosmos and a reality, and this is how it came to be. Step 1, the avatars come to rescue us. And so that's a great thing there. I mean, Swamiji could have saved that for the end, after everything else. Oh, by the way, call to the avatars, they'll come and rescue you. No, it's just that's where we start. And then, that's fine, but what do we do once the avatars come? Oh, Saukima? Doesn't work that way. Someone told Swamiji, he said, I had a dream of Babaji. Swamiji said, really? He said, what happened in the dream? Yeah, we sat down and had a smoke. It's probably not Babaji. I mean, it's just amazing sometimes what people with imagination can do. And then they can believe it, even very sincerely. But it may not be real. We have to be careful of that in ourselves. Thank you, Ramesh. This hot water is top-notch. So, the thing then to remember is that after we hear that the avatars come to help us, then we get this topic, the importance of soul receptivity. And that soul receptivity is another word for attunement. And people are often asking in the Level 3 Part 1 class, what is attunement? Otiseyan is the Tamil translation. What is attunement? And it's a word, as far as I can tell, that Master created. It's not a word you hear very often otherwise. And so, in this sense, thinking of it as soul receptivity. You see, first of all, receptivity is crucial in order for us to grow. We have to be listening. We have to be open. We have to receive. And Master said it all the time. You can hear it in the recordings even of him, of his voice, that as many as received him, he said, quoting the Bible, him meaning Jesus, as many as received him, to them he gave the power to become the sons of God, the children of God. And it's such an important statement because he didn't say, to whoever would listen, he gave them teachings. And to whoever would listen, he gave them the truth even. He gave them the power to become children of God themselves. Now, of course, on one level, we're all children of God already, so it's a philosophical fine point. But to know, to realize that's really what he gave them the power to do. The power of realization, the power of self-realization. But that key word is power. That is what the avatars do for us. And any avatar who does it, it would be our guru. And even a guru can do it for us even if they're not an avatar. That's sort of the two things don't go together. What's the difference between someone who is a non-avatar guru? Master put it this way. He said, that when a soul becomes free, it is called a jivan mukta, and he used a wonderful translation, liberated. And then when a soul, but the problem is, not the problem, but the work that remains is, though one with God, the soul still has past karma to work out. No new karma. That's our goal, no new karma. But there is past karma to work out. And so after working out all that past karma, then the soul is called paramukta or siddha or siddhi, both. Which is it? Siddha. You have siddhis, you are a siddha. You are a siddha. But that master said, fully liberated. Just very simple, liberated and fully liberated. It's just such a nice way to think of it. So the only difference is that he said a fully liberated being brings more of God's power on earth. That's all. So when a paramukta comes, they are an avatar. Or to put it another way, an avatar is one who is fully liberated. And so whereas a jivan mukta might work with a smaller group of disciples, an avatar can change the whole course of the earth, even, of mankind in general. Swamiji asked Master, "Are you an avatar?" And Master said, "A work of this importance would have to be started by such a one." That's the way he answered. I mean, what did he? He's not going to say, "Amma." Definitely, kandipa. Anybody who says "Nane avatar kandipa," maybe it's time to find a new friend. I don't know. It just. But Master did answer it indirectly. So, once Swamiji had a reading, it was actually a Nadi astrology reading, and one of the things they said was, "You are an avatar," and then they said, "That's what it says at the beginning. Come back later, we'll give you the whole reading." And it was a strange situation. Swamiji, it was his birthday, and he was having a celebration that evening. And so they said, these Nadi astrologers were not far away in distance, but they said, "Come in the evening, we'll have the reading fully ready." He said, "But I have this function for in the evening, and it's my birthday, and I can't exactly not go to my birthday party." And then they said, "Fine, we will read it. It has to be read today. It can't be read tomorrow." They sort of got from it. So they said, "You can send someone." So Swamiji said to me, "Will you go and you receive the reading, and then you can tell me about it?" And then he said, "By the way, they said I was an avatar, and tell them I'm not an avatar." He said, "I'm on an avatar's team." And that's a nice thought for us all to feel, that we are on Swamiji's team, we are on Master's team. Who wants to be an avatar? Well, maybe one day, but meanwhile, let's just work on step one. And so anyway, as it turned out, when I got there, they said, "We can't, he has to read it, because this is not just meaning he has to be present. It's not just a reading, it's a blessing. And this is a blessing from Shiva and Parvati that he has to receive himself. It has to be read aloud for the first time in his presence. And we've never seen anything like this." And so I was calling him saying, not him, but it's Dharmarajan saying, "Well, they're saying it." And then I just asked them, "Would you go to see Swamiji?" And they have this whole thing. They said, no, it has to be read here because the vibrations are very sacred. I didn't have the heart to say, they're pretty sacred in Swamiji's house also. But anyway, they asked their guru, and he said, "Of course, go." And they never go. That's like their one rule, that they don't ever go. Because otherwise they'd have to go everywhere. I mean, you'd be on Swiggy. I would like Nadi astrology in 45 minutes, and then they ride on the back of the motorcycle and so on. So they never go. But for Swamiji, they did. And so anyway, there's more to that story. But just to say that we are on an avatar's team. But the avatar's mission, Master's mission, has a global, a quantitative aspect of helping this whole planet move from Kali Yuga into Dwapara Yuga, of helping spread Kriya Yoga, which Babaji said so many people have been asking for. And at the time when Master was in America, he was saying that Americans had a technique for everything. They had business, techniques for medicine, and so on. But they wanted techniques for the spiritual path. They wanted techniques for finding God, which of course yoga offers in abundance. But these always have to be refreshed, refocused, never changed. But saying, this is the need now because our understanding is this. I mean, we laugh because we in Dwapara Yuga can talk about energy and how wonderful it is that you can use these techniques to raise your energy. And if people says, energy, Ananda, we say energy is energy. You know what it is. You just feel it. You're alive. You have energy. You can't really define it. You can make nonsense definitions and then be proud of them. But as it says here, that I loved that line. That's why I wanted to keep this. He says, truth is a state of consciousness, not a well-worded definition. Just having knowledge, being able to define things, saying words, doesn't mean anything if we don't feel it. I mean, it's a start. It may head us in the right direction. It has value. But it's not enough. Swamiji said, not having devotion, which is the missing ingredient, is like living next door to a wonderful restaurant. You know everything about the place. You know the menu, you know the specials on Monday, on Tuesday, you know all about the owner, you know how the first chef came, then he had a problem, and then he went back, and then the second chef came. All of it. But if you're not hungry, then you never go and eat. And that's what intellectual learning is without devotion. It's sort of like we can give you every recipe for dosa there ever was, but we've never eaten one. I mean, it would just be, what's the point then? Except to be a dosa expert. I can recite the Dosa Gita and so on in the original Sanskrit. I don't know. So, this receptivity, this ability to receive, this interest comes from that hunger and that devotion. So again, what's the secret of attunement? What's the secret of receiving and listening? Is devotion, is hunger, desire to do it. You see, if we're in an emergency, we become very attentive to whatever it is that's going to help us. And otherwise, we can be distracted or whatever. And so, just to finish this thought about we are in this age of energy, Master's bringing us into Dwapara Yuga, because we know about energy, if nothing else, from electricity. Whereas in Kali Yuga, you couldn't talk about the same energy that's in the sun is the same energy that is in the lightning. They all seem like different things. Even our life energy, we exchange in a way. We couldn't talk like that. But remember, in the next yuga, it's the age of magnetism. And, Sri Yukteswar said, and in the age of magnetism, there will be insights that you can't understand right now, so I'm not going to bother to try to explain them. And if Sri Yukteswar says that, you say, fine, you are right. Because even what he does try to explain, or does explain, is very difficult to try to understand. So anyway, then everyone will just be laughing and talk about magnetism, and energy. That's so Dwapara Yuga, So it's just a product of where we are. But do you really want to live to that time? Because then it becomes Satya Yuga, and then they'll be saying everything is spirit, and you're still hung up on magnetism. I remember when I was like you, and so let's just get to God. That's the point. But Master said during these transitions between yugas, it's easier to make spiritual progress, and so maybe that's why we've come. I'd like to think we've also come to help him, part of being on the Avatar's team. But we have to be receptive, and we have to deepen our receptivity. And what we have to do, this was something Dharmini was saying yesterday in the Kriya initiation, that if we see a little light, we want to help it to grow. If we hear a little sound, we want it to grow. If we have a little kernel of interest or a little kernel of love, we want to take that and build upon it, expand it, and so on. Master said, find in your life a little joy, a little bubble of joy, and puff on it. Just make it bigger, expand it. And so, what does that mean? It means that if we're in a grumpy mood, try to find anything that you can smile about, anything that you can laugh at in a positive way. I remember once sitting with Dharmini, and these people at the table next to us were laughing. And I was not in that kind of a mood, and I was getting grumpier and grumpier, and I finally said, listen to how they're laughing. And she said, well, at least they're laughing. And I started laughing. I had to. It was just like she had caught me. Even she didn't say it in a harsh way. It was kind, but I thought, yeah, that's right. Maybe I'm jealous because I was the opposite of laughing. See, we have to find a way. One easy thing we can do, as the saying goes, learn to laugh at yourself, and you will find endless amusement. And another thing, this was a T-shirt that Swamiji had that he wore for a long time. He would sleep within the T-shirt, sort of not a nightgown, but just an oversized shirt. And it said, angels can fly because they take themselves lightly. And it's a very helpful thought. Just, we're God's children, that's fine. Let's take ourselves lightly. If somebody takes you lightly, oh well. Anybody with any sense will not. But, so we want to find whatever we have that's positive and grow it. And because why? Sometimes we're unhappy, something is not working, we're frustrated. We tend to focus on it, if we do. And that thing becomes like all or nothing in our whole lives. That because I will only be happy if this situation works out. So we contract our focus. And often unnecessarily so, and say, okay, well, what other 5 things that I can talk about in my life that are going well, that are positive, that have nothing to do with this? Maybe I can focus on those or something. Always try to expand, always try to cheer ourselves up, or unentangle ourselves. And so this attunement, this receptivity, this listening to Master is vital. And this process does happen more or less automatically on one level. God gives us tests. Our karma shows over time the things we understand, we don't understand. We get lessons through that. And it can happen. I heard of an interesting story of... I don't know if it's true at all. It was just told to me by a friend who had talked to a psychic about the whole thing. But there was somebody who had a hard life. She was always, she was having a hard time getting things together. She just, she worked, but she went through several jobs. Her sort of personal life, she was a little bit lonely. She'd have some friendships, then she'd lose them. Then she'd find more. It wasn't bad, but it just was kind of a little chaotic. And it was a lot of stopping and starting, as opposed to being more consistent. And on the one hand, that's a perfectly fine way to live, but she was sort of burdened by that. Anyway, somebody said that they asked someone about her, and the psychic said that, in her past life, she was very rigid and had huge amounts of willpower, but she was intolerant of weakness. So she just couldn't have any patience with anybody who couldn't get it together themselves. What's the matter with you? It's easy. One woman said that to Swamiji. I don't know why people suffer around money. I've had no problem making money. And Swamiji said she had that karma to do that. Anything you can do easily, it comes from karma. That brings an easy success as opposed to something else. There's a little bit of effort involved, but a lot of it is karma. And we should be careful, and I'll come back to that point, about judging others. Anyway, this person said that this woman had such strong willpower, but no patience, no tolerance for anyone without it. And that so in this life, she was born without that willpower. Isn't that interesting? Because it's not as if she hadn't developed willpower as a soul or as a spirit. I mean, the soul is always perfect, so it doesn't make sense to say the soul developed willpower. The soul has the perfection of God. At the same time, we have to find some word to describe the person in between lifetimes, what stays the same. And we can say the ego element of the astral body, but it just becomes tiresome. So I'm going to say soul, but please understand what I mean. So anyway, the soul had that power. That's what I found fascinating, because you somehow imagine if I don't have a strength, it may be because I haven't developed it. This person had that strength, but it was hidden in this lifetime, if this is true, and I'll explain how it ties in with Master's teachings. So that she could I'll begin what I'm about to say. She could basically suffer without having that lack of willpower. She could experience that. Okay? So let me pause there. Master said, do not criticize others. Do not look down on others. He says, if you do criticize, judge others is another word I think he used. Don't judge others. He said, because if you do, you doom yourself to live through the experiences in the future of those people of whom you disapprove so uncharitably. Okay, so if you're judging someone else, you are going to live through their same circumstances yourself. Okay, so somebody always loses their chappals, and you say, okay, lost the chappals again. Oh, I'm so surprised. Is that the 100th pair? And then what happens? En chappal senge. Maybe they took them. Anyway, but the thing is, we find that same thing happens to us, maybe even in this lifetime, little things like that. And Master said, absolutely. So I've always heard that, and I've understood it as if you criticize someone, you are going to then have to walk a mile in their shoes. Fine. And also, I loved that word, those of whom you disapprove so uncharitably. Meaning, I don't love the word uncharitably, but I love the implication. Let us be charitable. Let us give people the benefit of the doubt. If you could see everything about someone's life and karma, it would be completely clear why they're behaving the way they are, why they have the strengths that they have. If they're really successful and we're saying, gee, how did you get there? It's like, it's because there was 100 lifetimes of suffering, whatever. You say, great, good for you, I'm very happy. Or the opposite, someone is causing us suffering, but we can start to understand why they are like that. And in most cases, anybody who's causing us suffering is already suffering themselves. I mean, think about it. Who is in a good mood and says, you know, you're an idiot. Total idiot. Yeah. No, I feel great. No, it never comes from cheerfulness. It's because they have this tension and they try to release it by just dumping it on somebody else. So like I said, they're already unhappy, and what's more is very rarely is it personal. How do you know? Because if you step aside and aren't there, and then someone else comes along, and then they spew the acid on that person. See, it doesn't matter as long as someone can take my acid. It really has nothing to do with that. And what can be helpful on a practical level is if you don't react outwardly. You might react. Can you make those fins go up a little bit? Aimed more this way. If you don't react outwardly, even though you may feel it inside, very often that person may apologize later, or at least have an apologetic air. So, how are you? You doing okay? Because they know they did wrong. But if you say, yes, you are, you're the idiot, okay, now the fun starts. And so, it's a good piece of advice, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't talk about it to anyone. Just maybe if that person can't talk about it, don't keep trying. Talk to someone else about it. Now, but that really comes from immaturity. And does that mean we get to run around going, immature, immature, immature? No. We have to say, okay, how can I become more self-controlled, more of an adult, more grown up, more calm, more self-contained? I have felt that temptation to because it's just not fair. It's not fair. Swamiji said it's like dumping a bucket of cold water on somebody or on a group of people, just bleh, when we just do that. And so I was thinking, it seems sometimes like a bucket of hot water, but I think it depends, because cold water just kind of takes the fun out of things. And so anyway, so Master said, don't criticize, don't judge, because then you will live through those circumstances. And I guess I hadn't really thought it through, because when I heard this other story of this person who was reborn having tremendous willpower but not having access to it, and I knew this woman, and it's funny thing about her is she will be very forceful and rigid about certain things, stupid things, just like, we're not going to have any of that, but could we? No! And it's just like, so I've known her to have strong willpower about little things, but not able to use that willpower in terms of the kind of life that she wants for herself. And so I could relate to, yeah, I've seen that willpower come out. So, but to not have the ability to really use it, why? Because she criticized, maybe. But for the sake of Master's statement, let's see it. Let's assume it's true. Criticizing others, being intolerant of anybody who doesn't have strong willpower, then she gets to experience that. Why? As punishment. No. Not as punishment. That's the part that I hadn't thought through. So that she can learn. So that she can improve her understanding. So that she can grow, so that she can heal. You see, we shouldn't be intolerant of anything. Someone asked Swamiji that. She said, there's so much intolerance in this world, so much intolerance. And he said, well, I think we do need to be tolerant. But people aren't tolerant. They aren't. And he said, I think we need to be tolerant even of intolerance. So, it's just, another way Swamiji put it, when things were upsetting because they weren't right, he said, this is just the nature of the world. It's the nature of it's human nature. Why get excited about it? And I felt, right. It was very calming. Why get worked up over it? Look, it's happening. There must be some reason that it's happening, or there's some lesson in it. But why get too worked up over it? Because peace is always inside, not outside always, or ever, but inside. So it's not that we're losing anything by some outward circumstance not going our way. We always have this portable paradise, as Master called it, inside. And you always have Him inside. Remember the beautiful words to the disciple who said, Master, what if I'm alone? In a different context. He said, what if I'm alone? And Master said, am I not always with you? And so he's saying that to each of us. Am I not always with you? You're not alone. Someone was telling me they were praying to God a lot. They were praying to Master and Swamiji a lot. They were having a difficult time because they were in a situation where they were having to give and give and give. And everybody was just take and take and take. And not even thanks a lot, just on their own. And the person was doing this day after day, and on the sort of seventh day, the person saying, Master bless them, and Master bless me, and Swamiji, and bless me, and anyway, I'm doing the best I can. And then the person just sort of said, well, I'm going to do this again, not that anybody cares. And then she said she heard, I see it. He goes, oh, Master and Swamiji, they see it. They care. It counts with them. They understand. So, again, coming back just to finish this example. So this person, if it really was true, anyway, if it's not true, it's true to life. That born without access to that power, and you see that sometimes in people, they sort of have this sense that I should be more than I am. You see this thing especially with people, when someone said, oh yeah, she's a reborn queen. Master said that about some people. He said of some of his disciples that they had been queens before in previous lives. And we sort of talk about it. You can see them sort of like, where is my queendom? Where is my kingdom? Where are the subjects? You know, sort of, why am I all alone here? Someone else, Jyotishji, affectionately described as a general without an army. You know, just sort of, okay, let's go team. But, you know, why isn't anyone following my orders? And it's like, well, it's not exactly the flow in this life. But anyway, so this woman, not having access to her willpower, I found fascinating, so that she could learn what it feels like to not be able to get things together, and then to have compassion for that by having lived through it. It really, I found it very touching, because if true, or even if not literally true for this person, it's certainly true to our teachings, that God says, let me help you with that. You are so impatient, intolerant, not able to handle anybody who is not having your strength. Well, then let me have you have a life without that strength. And then you'll know what it feels like. Not as a, now you know what it feels like. You know how frustrating it is to be able to want to and just not being able to get it together. Master said, you will never be reborn with the exact same kind of body. And I heard that and I went, okay, I mean, if you've got some arms and legs and fingers, it's probably good enough, you know. And he said, and you will not be born with the exact same kind of mind. I went, uh-oh. And that was interesting to me, that somehow bothered me. Like, but I mean, we want to have our mind. I mean, you know, you don't want to lose your mind. You don't want to have somebody else's mind. Like, you know, what does that mean? But the mind is just the mind. Logic, analysis, the ability to perceive and all of that, that's not your soul. That's not the ability to love. He doesn't say you're not born with the exact same kind of soul, because you are that soul. There's nothing else to be. But that also kind of corroborated this as possibly an example, that maybe in this lifetime you wouldn't have the strength of mind. It would be hidden. And so anyway, keep this in mind as an example of what Master said, that we want to always be charitable towards others. Now, if somebody is harassing you, it doesn't mean that you don't take breaks from the harassment. No, I have to be charitable. Honestly, it isn't charitable to put up with someone's misbehavior indefinitely. Why? I don't mean take steps, to sort of send them, somewhere else. I don't mean that. But what I mean is, if being around them causes them to misbehave, that's not good karma for them. You see? It's not good for them to shout and scream. And so to say, well, they say I always have to sit here so they can shout and scream, but you're basically allowing them to earn more bad karma. So, I mean, often someone is saying, come here, be here, so I can shout and scream, and they're really saying, please don't be here, because I need space, but I don't know how to say it. And so they're actually agitated, and they just want some peace. Left to their own devices, they'll calm down, or they'll become stronger. That's another way we can not help, is just pouring energy into somebody who needs to develop that energy on their own. And it isn't compassionate. I mean, just imagine, first standard exam, don't worry, I will take those exams for you. No problem. 6 + 7, got it. Second standard exam, no, it's okay. Kuti, I will do it. So what happens? The child comes out, and graduates from 12th standard exam, which you also did for them, and they go for a job interview, and ooh, that's what I know, and also how to eat. That's their big accomplishment. People need to face their own exams. What can we do to help them? Sure. I remember someone I was trying to ask for help, and he was brilliant at math, but he was not brilliant at teaching, or at least to teaching me. And so I tried to ask for help on this. Can you explain this? And he tried in a certain way. God bless him, he tried, but he couldn't. And then later I said to him something like, I finally understood it. But I did find it difficult. He said, yeah, when I was trying to explain it to you, I saw there was no hope. And I just thought, wow, that's really, I think teaching is not in your aura, because the whole thought of trying to be of service to our fellow beings is to think that there is hope. That what can I do to help? There has to be a way. I say this because I spent a lot of time as a math teacher. And a lot of what I did, in addition to classroom work, was also working with, this was in the Ananda schools, working with children individually who were struggling with math, and trying to find a way to explain it to them that then would work for them. Because I was convinced, first of all, that there was no such thing as not able to understand math. It's just you might not be able to explain it in this one way in which it was explained. So maybe try different ways. And I really had to struggle with, thinking outside my natural patterns to find a way to explain it to the other. And so anyway, it tended to work for the people. On some level, they certainly got through their subject. But I had that thought that if I'm sitting with someone and they're not understanding what I'm saying, it is not their fault. It's my responsibility to try to not, I have stated it. Swamiji said very often people will be content if they state a truth in a way that makes sense to themselves. But you're in a conversation with someone else, it should make sense to them. Then you can say maybe you've accomplished something. Otherwise, we haven't accomplished anything. So if someone is just talking and at you, but it's not making sense, well, maybe they just need to share and in a way. But if we are trying to talk to someone, it first of all means say what we want to in a way that will make sense to them. In other words, take their reality into account. And on the other hand, if you say, but there's no way that this will make sense to them, which was in a situation I was in recently, then we have to say nothing. Because it's just not something that they're ready for. One thing Swamiji said was, am I speaking, not he, but he's saying we ask ourselves, am I speaking out of their need to hear it, or of my need to say it? And if it's just from my need, maybe reconsider. But then find someone else who you can talk to and you can share, because it's natural to share. And we don't want to always just be, no one can receive, no one wants to listen, that's fine, I am self-contained. That you find somebody, and if you always have Master, you always have Swamiji, you can write in a journal, you can pray to God, you have your Guru Bhais, your community here, make friends with each other here, and you can talk also. Not just on Sunday, but you can talk at other times. You can, hey, on WhatsApp and just check in. Why not? We are social creatures. We need that. And we have many families. And our spiritual family is one of them. One of our members here, in his early days of involvement, when he was leaving to come to his satsang, his son and his wife said, so you're going to see your other family? And so it was very sweet, because they were supportive, actually. But so, we are connected in many ways, and especially as disciples of Master. And I don't just mean in this lifetime, but probably in other lifetimes, either literally in knowing each other in past lives, or knowing Master's path and having that subconscious memory, hidden memory of this just feels like home. This feels right to me. Why does it feel right to you? Because it's yours. It's just that simple. So spend time with others. Like-minded people was something Master emphasized all the time. Like-minded people. It can be very satisfying. And if you feel a little shaken up in the storm or a little beaten up by too much of mixing with unlike-minded people or dislike-minded people, then take a break and reconnect. Okay? It works every time. Why? Is it just, I like to speak with everyone who agrees with me? There's an element of that. I mean, if you're agreeing about truth, that is useful. But it's more than that. It's that Master comes through each one. You bring Master's vibration. Each one of us brings Master's vibration. And Master connects with us through others. And sometimes Master flows through us to others. I don't mean you should say, this is now Master talking. Okay? Take this down. Don't claim that. If people feel it, fine. But Master himself said, meditate, love God, and whoever will see your eyes will change. He said, it's a beautiful thing. It's not that we are seeking to change them. It's that God flows through us to them. That's what attunement is. When we are in love with God and Master, we're open to them, we're studying their teachings, not just being in it, but studying, learning, practicing, not just the techniques, chanting, coming to satsang like this, then naturally, through that openness, then Master and Swamiji can also reach out and help others. And if we're in a group like this, then others can also, Master and Swamiji can flow through others and reach out and help us. Okay? As Haridas Ji says, we sometimes can heal one another with a glance. Such a beautiful thought that you're kind of, and you see somebody else, and a devotee, and they, hi, how are you? Huh? I'm actually okay. Now that you asked, now that someone asked, I'm fine. No, it's more than that. It's just, it sometimes just radiates. They don't even say a word, just a smile, and that's that. I remember Swamiji, who's not a good example because he was like a lighthouse, or he was like a blinding sun. But man, if you walked into a room and he smiled, you'd all set for a week.